Okay, so today we're going to be talking about um, from boyhood to manhood. So, and the first question I'm going to ask you is the moment of boyhood, the moment a boy becomes a man, is it age, responsibility, or a rite of passage? What do you think?
In my opinion, based off of personal experience and things that I've observed, it's definitely not age. It's definitely not based on age. I mean, how many times have we seen males, and I'm using that word deliberately, that are 25, 35, 40 years old, and they're no more mature than your 15-year-old kid. They just a little bit older. So, it's definitely not age based. I would definitely say it's more based off of, level of responsibility. And we see that throughout history. I mean, you look back at, the early 1900s, boys that were as young as 13 years old was working full-time jobs. And you go back a few decades before that, and they were getting married at 15, 16 years old. So when it comes down to it, the term, when does a boy become a man, that's more based off of his level of maturity, his level of being able to accept responsibility and to act on it in a manner consistent, um, that basically tells his community that he's able to conduct his affairs as a man individually.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that because you brought up like the 1900s. I mean, we can go as far back as we need to, to the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the time of Alexander the Great. You
So
know, I think men were built differently back then, and I don't know what you're going to think about this, but I think that it's also because we live in an age of distraction. We live in an age of screens and electronics, and those take a lot away from who we are as men. For example, we use the term males that aren't doing much in their life. I would say that, like I said, we live in an age of distraction, and a lot of men aren't doing what they did. I would go so far to say as 50 years ago. Teenagers aren't doing as much. For example, I don't know about you. My father and my family, we come from petroleum, so we're very well off. That's how I was raised. And so at the age of 13, I asked my father, I said, "Hey, you gonna buy me a car when I'm 16?" And we lived in Southern California. I had everything mapped out. Like, I'm gonna have the car, I'm gonna have the BMW, I'm gonna have the
yeah,
Mercedes, I'm gonna show up at school, I'm gonna do that. And my father said, "No, not even a dollar, nothing, zero." And I'm like looking at my dad, like we live, this late 80s, we live in a house that's like $750,000 at the time that he paid cash with. I mean, not cash, but he just bought it all out. And I'm just
yep,
thinking, you could literally change my life with the car. But he wanted to um, teach me a lesson. So I said, "Well, how am I going to buy a car?"
mm,
He said, "Well, there's a lawnmower in our garage, and there's a bucket, and there's a sponge, and there's car soap. And if I were you, I'd go around the neighbors, because I was only 13. I couldn't get really a job, even though I could have got a job, but I would have had to pay taxes. I just did it under the table, and I was the
yep,
boy that would go to your neighborhood and knock on your door and, hey, my name is so and so, and I notice you got two cars out there, and
mm,
I'm washing cars, and I'll cut your front lawn and your back lawn." And long story short, I did this um, while living in Southern California with my friends, going to the skate park, going to the beach with their family, going surfing. I
mm,
was a total surf rat in Southern California. Um, Played football, surfed. That's all I did. And so the day comes for me to take my driver's license test, and I'm there literally on my birthday to take my test. Back in the day, we didn't just wait. We did things. We made it happen because we wanted it. And so I went there and I passed my test, and I went back and I said to my dad, "I want to buy a car." And from 3 years of savings, I only had $800, but I had $800 though. I had $800.
Yeah, that was a
And
good one.
so
Yeah.
and so, you know, what we did in Gen X, you go to the the gas station or the store and you get yourself an auto trader and you look for cars. And so I saw this 1972 orange Volkswagen Bug. And when you get your first car, you don't care. Does it have steering wheel? Does it have wheels? Does it run? Okay, I'm in it. I'm gonna buy it. I don't care. It looks cool. Let's go. So my dad's got like, well, hold on, and I'm like, no, that's the car that I want. And so I brought it home. I bought it with my own money. And for me, since we're talking about becoming a boy or being a boy and going into manhood or early manhood, whatever you want to call it, I would say that what I just did when I was 16 years old was a rite of
Mm,
passage in a way,
mm,
because my dad could have easily went to the car lot in Mercedes or BMW and pick the newest one that you want and let's go. Let's get out of here. But he taught me the lesson,
right.
and he taught me something that I'll never forget. I mean, that was one of the most important things in my life was um, looking back and remembering everything that I had to do, like all of the sweat and the people, when I was charging $15, they would say, "Oh, I only got $10." I still took it. That's what you got to do to get your
Yep.
money. And everybody, hey man, you want to go to the beach? I can't. I can't. I only got like a year and a half left till I'm 16 and I want to get my car and everything. And they're just like, they're showing up on the latest, they're going to show up at school with the latest model of car, their dad's going to buy them. But
100%.
my dad didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you have a story like that when you're a kid? Like,
Yeah, I
from
would
your life
definitely attest
experience?
to that because